this event, connect with Stephanie on Facebook, on Instagram, or we will leave the message in the comments as well where you can reach out to her. But today we are going to talk about the winter blues. And without further ado, Stephanie starts.
Thank you, Ms. Kay, and thank you to Columbus Impact. This has been an extraordinary opportunity. I really enjoyed spending the last 4 Mondays with all of you at home, as well as all of you here. I have enjoyed each and every workshop. Again, I would like to thank Ms. Kay and Columbus Impact for giving me this opportunity to be of service in the community. This week, we are talking about mental health and the winter blahs. I think I like the fact that this is the last workshop in the series because I think this is something that all of us can probably relate to. Either we know someone who goes through the winter blahs or we've experienced it. Some people experience it every year. Some people experience it some years more than others, but we're going to dive in and talk more about it. So, did I go to the next screen? Okay. So, just in case you have not been with us the last 3 weeks, a little bit about me. I am an independently licensed trauma-focused therapist. I have my own private practice located in downtown Columbus. I am a graduate of Columbus Alternative High School. Now I think about it, I have not left the state of Ohio. Like, I went to Columbus Alternative High School. For undergrad, I went to Ohio University in Athens, and I got my master's from The Ohio State University. I have been a social worker and working in the field for over 18 years now. And I have actually been treated for anxiety as well as trauma in the past. So this is not something that, trauma-focused treatment is not something that I just talk about professionally, but I've experienced it as well. And my family and I, at some point over the last 10 years or so, have benefited from the services that Impact provides. So again, I really appreciate this opportunity to give back. So by the end of this workshop, you will understand what seasonal affective disorder is. You will know how to identify it, and you will understand how to treat it or to get treatment for it. So I'm going to ask you guys at home and people in the audience, fill in this blank for me. Why do I feel more blank in the wintertime? So for me, why do I feel more tired during the winter months? And for me, it usually starts, I'd say fall, probably around October, November. But anybody else, can they fill in that blank? Why do I feel more blank during the winter months?
Yeah, I would say it's not really like an emotion, but just like blah.
Actually, that is a feeling word, blah. Why do I feel more blah? Yeah. Yes, okay. Anybody else, Miss Tanisha? Lazy. Why do I feel more lazy in the winter months? Anybody else? Lethargic. Very good word, yes. So there are a lot of words that we could use to describe how some people feel during the late fall and winter months. So I can't see anything on this screen. Okay. The feeling wheel? Okay. So some words I would use to describe what people feel during the winter months, and just so we know what we're talking about, it's seasonal affective disorder, which is a form of depression, and it usually hits people in the late fall, early winter months and lasts throughout the winter. So some of the words I would use to describe what people experience the winter blahs would be chronic fatigue, maybe a loss of interest in things that you normally enjoy doing. You may be sleeping more, you may be eating more, you may actually be eating less. Maybe you're not as active, you're not moving around as much. Let me think of some other words, some other feeling words. You may feel agitated. Yes, shut in, isolated, absolutely. You may feel actually sad, but you may not understand why you're feeling that way. Like everything may be fine in your life, but somehow, some way during those late fall and winter months, you feel like, I'm sad and I don't know why. So there is a name for that. It's called seasonal affective disorder. So now let's talk about, can we turn down the lights? Because I can't, oh, okay, we can't, okay. So let's talk about what seasonal affective disorder is. The clinical term, well, it's also, seasonal affective disorder is also known as SAD. And some of the symptoms are feeling sad or having a depressed mood. Are we back up? Oh, hey. Okay. Feeling sad or having a depressed mood, loss of interest or pleasure in activities once enjoyed, changes in appetite, usually eating more, but you could be eating less, changes in sleep, usually sleeping too much, but you could also have disturbances like maybe you fall asleep but can't sleep through the night, you're restless. Loss of energy or increased fatigue despite increased sleep hours. So a lot of people who struggle with seasonal affective disorder may find themselves sleeping more, but still not feeling rested. Increase in purposeless physical activity, inability to sit still, pacing, hand wringing, or slowed movements or speech, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, difficulty thinking, concentrating, or making decisions. In some extreme cases, you actually may seasonally be more inclined to have thoughts of suicide or thoughts of self-harm or self-harm thoughts, urges. Again, seasonal affective disorder is under that umbrella of depression. It just hits people mostly in the late fall and winter months. So SAD can look like, to simplify this, so you'll know if you're just maybe having a rough couple of weeks or if it's something more. If in other seasons you don't feel these symptoms, but suddenly when the weather changes and there's less sunlight out, you're starting to feel some of these symptoms, that's an indication that you may be struggling with seasonal affective disorder. It could also look like irritability, not wanting to get up. You know, maybe during the fall and winter months, you tend to call off more. You may even be experiencing what therapists we call somatic symptoms. So you're not really technically sick, but you're like having stomach aches and headaches and achiness, and you feel like something's wrong, but maybe it's not actually wrong. It could be symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. It could also be irritability. Any parents out there, you might find yourself snapping at your kids more during the winter months. You may find yourself not as active or engaged with like friends and family. You may find yourself laying around more and laying in the bed more, watching more TV. But really what you want to pay attention to is if you're just not feeling happy with life during these winter months, and you really just can't understand why. Can anybody think of any other things that you may experience with seasonal affective disorder now you understand what it is? Anybody? Has anyone in the audience ever experienced seasonal affective disorder? Ms. Kay?
Yeah. Just not really realizing that you can't always bring yourself out of that funk, having to take, I guess, a longer recovery time. And normally something happens and you'll think about it, but just, I think in the winter months, sometimes, whether it's because it's gray outside, but I'll just find myself replaying that same negative
Ruminating
self-talk.
thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah, so something may happen that makes you upset or sad, but you feel like during those winter months, it may be harder for you to shake it or bounce back from it. That's a really good indication that something may be going on, that it might be seasonal affect disorder. Anyone else? So you may find that, you know, you're not as organized, or you're not cleaning up as much. You're not doing your chores, and your house may not be as clean as it normally would. And again, with seasonal affective disorder, you're looking at, does this happen more during the late fall and winter months? What can be done to treat seasonal affective disorder? You definitely want to contact your primary care physician, and I'm going to tell you why. When I have clients come in and they tell me, you know, I think I'm depressed, or I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling kind of blah, and they don't understand why, when I'm assessing them, one of the first things I ask them is, have you had a physical health exam? Okay, so have you had your iron or vitamin D checked? And this is really important because African Americans tend to have lower vitamin D than other races. So that's something all of us, especially if you live in the Midwest, that would be strike two. You, as an African American, you may have lower vitamin D. Well, guess what? If your vitamin D is lower, some of those symptoms will mimic depression. So before I diagnose you with major depressive disorder or seasonal affective disorder, I'm going to want to know, have you recently had your vitamin D checked? Same thing with low iron. It can cause chronic fatigue. So that would be the first thing I would want to do, rule that out. And I tell all of my clients who come to see me, it's really a good idea to have get your blood drawn and have your iron, vitamin D, A1C3, and all of that stuff at least checked once a year. I would recommend twice a year, but at least once a year. And usually if you ask your primary care physician to do it, they'll do it. Most of them do it once a year anyway, but definitely I think at least once a year you should get that checked. So I would want to rule that out and make sure there is not a physical health explanation for some of these symptoms. Increase exposure to light. This can include outdoor light even when it's overcast. So if you get at least 15 to 20 minutes of continuous light a day, that will help your body produce the vitamin D it needs. Obviously, it's easier to get more sunlight, especially in Columbus, Ohio, during the spring and summer months. But believe it or not, even in the wintertime when it's snow and icy and it's overcast, still going outside and getting 10 or 15 minutes or 15 or 20 minutes of continuous light can help. You can also, and I think this is on the other side, you can also consider investing in it's called like a depression light that you can buy. I got one off of Amazon for like $30. And if you sit in front of that light for 20 to 30 minutes a day, that can also help your body naturally reproduce vitamin D. But if you don't want to invest in a light, just try to go outside for 10 or 15 minutes. They say before 10 is best, so in the early morning. And again, don't feel like it has to be so sunny that it's like super hot and warm, just as long as the sun is out. Take daily walks if possible. Exercise is a natural antidepressant. I tell all of my clients that. And stick to a daily routine. So again, if you notice that during those late fall and winter months that you are less organized and you're not doing your chores and you're not washing clothes, or you're washing clothes but you're letting them sit in the basket, force yourself to maintain that same level of energy and routine that you would in the spring and summer months. Invest in a light, increase daily physical activity. Now, because we're in COVID, I understand not everybody, or not everybody can afford a membership, but really just taking a walk 15, 20 minutes a day. Or again, I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, you can get online and there's all sorts of free online fitness workouts with different instructors you can do. And you can even include your kids in it, so it could be a family activity, but Physical activity is a natural antidepressant. Try to avoid or reduce the use of alcohol and or caffeine. This one's really important. So I know a lot of us love our coffee. I was actually a big Coca-Cola drinker. That was kind of like my coffee, but still, none of it's good. It's not great. So in particular, in the winter months, you want to pay attention to how much caffeine you're taking in, and you definitely don't want to drink a lot of caffeine past like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you can reduce your caffeine and alcohol intake, that would be great. If you can cut your caffeine intake off at 3 o'clock, that would be wonderful. And the same with alcohol, drink in moderation. People in the wintertime, may tend to drink a little more out of boredom. You just want to watch that. And drinking a lot of extra alcohol can impact your sleep as well. Stay connected. Again, with COVID, people are hesitant to invite people over or go over to people's house. Make use of social media and the ability to connect with people virtually, but stay connected. And fight that urge to get in bed and just kind of lay around. Make sure you're getting sleep, but not too much, because again, during these fall and winter months, you may be more inclined to just kind of lay around and nap here and there over the weekends. Try to maintain your routine over the weekends. Don't oversleep. Prescription medication, if you've been diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder and you discuss it with your therapist and or primary care physician or psychiatrist, that could be an option. But honestly, not everybody is open to medication. Depending on how severe your symptoms are, you could actually manage and regulate your emotions and your mood, but it requires a lot of discipline. Don't worry, be happy. Laugh as much as possible. Watch videos. I actually just downloaded the TikTok or the TikTok app. I'm not sophisticated enough to create TikTok videos, but I do love watching them. They are very funny. You can get online, if you like animals, you can get online and look at funny animal videos, cat videos, dog videos. Watch a funny movie. I mean, right now, everybody probably has Hulu or, what's the other one? Hulu, Netflix, yes. What's the other one? Yeah, HBO Max, yeah. Watch some old funny videos or movies that maybe you watched as a kid and thought were funny. I used to love Adam Sandler. I thought all his movies were hilarious. When should you become concerned? Now, this is really important because, again, under this umbrella of depression, we have seasonal affective disorder. So some people go through this every year and they're used to it and they're aware of it and they know how to manage it. Some people have no idea what's going on with them and they've probably struggled with it every year and didn't realize it was seasonal affective disorder. They had these bouts of depression. And some people may already be struggling with major depressive disorder or dysthymia, and in the winter months, those symptoms worsen. So what you want to pay attention to is the frequency, intensity, and duration of these symptoms. When I am working with clients, and this is no matter what their diagnosis is, I'm always looking at frequency, intensity, and duration of symptoms when I'm going month to month, session to session, trying to track their progress. So if those symptoms that we talked about earlier, if the frequency of those symptoms, the intensity of those symptoms, and how long they're lasting, like Ms. Kay said, how quickly you're able to bounce back and recover from those symptoms, that's going to tell you a lot about whether or not this is something you can manage or do you need help from a doctor and or a therapist to help you manage. So if the symptoms last for more than 30 days, symptoms like isolation, feelings of hopelessness, marked change in appetite and or sleep patterns, suicidal, self-harm thoughts or urges, if those symptoms last more than 30 days and they persist and they become more intense, you definitely want to reach out to a primary care doctor. You can contact NetCare if there's a mental health crisis. Children's Hospital has a crisis line for young people, the adults can call. You definitely want to reach out to somebody and be assessed. What is one thing that we've all learned today from seasonal affective disorder? Is there anything that you know now that you didn't know before? Yes, I think that's a big one. People just assuming it's like normal. So it's like, what does normal mean? Which is why I went over in the previous slide, if those symptoms persist or they become more intense, that's when you want to say, okay, this isn't normal. Maybe I need to just have a conversation with my primary care physician. You know, most doctors can do a really quick assessment to determine whether or not you're struggling with depression or anxiety or if it's seasonal. So absolutely. Anybody else? One thing that you all learned today about seasonal affective disorder? Absolutely, yes. Self-care is important, and I think for every workshop that I have facilitated with you guys, I've talked about the importance of self-care. I talk to all of my clients about it. It's part of our check-in. What have you done physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually to take care of yourself? Well, and socially, to take care of yourself, you know, between sessions. Because the better you take care of yourself, when something happens, like a bout of seasonal affective disorder, when these things happen, your ability to recover from them will be easier. Again, frequency, intensity, duration. So the better care that you're giving yourself and the more intentional you are with self-care every single day, then when you do have these issues, you'll recover faster. And it won't require, it may not require a higher level of care or for you to go to a psychiatrist or a primary care doctor or a mental health professional. Let's see. How to find a therapist. I feel like I have the same slide every week, but it's important because I think in particular in the African American community, although I've seen a lot of progress with people being more open, talking about what they're going through and seeking help, I think there are still some barriers. I think there are some trust issues that African Americans have just in the health profession in general, but in mental health as well. And I think it's important to reiterate that there's lots of different ways for you to seek a therapist. Do your research. You can contact your insurance company. That's probably the fastest and easiest way to find a therapist because then you're not going to waste your time being referred to therapists who don't accept your insurance. Check Psychology Today. And I'm not just saying that because I have a profile on Psychology Today. I actually like Psychology Today. I like that you can put in whatever preferences you have, gender, sexual orientation. If you want a Christian-based therapist, you want a male or female, or a therapist of a certain age, you can put that criterion in, and Psychology Today will do its best to get you linked with someone. You can also put in what type of insurance you have, and then that will further narrow the search. Because I have heard sometimes with some insurance companies, they are not always keeping up to date with who is accepting particular insurances. Psychology Today is pretty up to date. Request a referral from primary care physician. Yes, primary care physicians can refer you. Again, it's very easy for them to do assessments in the office to determine if you have depression or anxiety. Is it seasonal? Because they know you, right? They have your records. So they'll know if it's seasonal, if this is something that maybe you already had been diagnosed with depression, but they know it gets worse during particular months. Your primary care physician has a lot of your medical history, which is helpful when making a referral. And then you can never go wrong with talking to friends and family for recommendations. For some people, that's like the best way to get referred to a doctor or a mental health therapist, talking to somebody who has had a relationship with that therapist. I get a lot of referrals from people who I see or who I've already seen, and they refer family members or friends to my practice. So you can never go wrong with word of mouth as well. But remember, finding a therapist is a very, I think it's very like specified. So everybody has different preferences. Everybody's personalities are different. All therapists do not practice in the same way. We have a lot of different methodologies that we use, treatment models. So you definitely want to make sure you have a good fit, because you are more likely to stay in therapy and have a successful experience in therapy if you have a good rapport. Any questions here or at home? Yes, ma'am.
Do you feel like with COVID, that this is something that can compound on each other? So like somebody's already kind of depressed because of COVID and being isolated, and then it's December, and so that's when the seasonal affective disorder comes into play. So do you think it's something that can compound on top of each other and just get worse?
So COVID, which I consider, not just because I'm a trauma-focused therapist, but I consider COVID and everything that we've dealt with as a society related to COVID has been this shared traumatic experience. So without question, that can be a factor, because you may not be going to the office, right? So it's forcing you to be home and be more still. And maybe you're not used to that. I know a lot of people who are struggling right now because that was like their respite, going to work and interacting with coworkers and that kind of stuff. So absolutely, COVID can compound these symptoms. And you may be someone who has never struggled with depression or anxiety, and because of COVID, you're having some of these symptoms. And then on top of that, we're getting less sunlight, right? So our body may be dysregulated. So absolutely, COVID and everything that comes with that can compound those symptoms. Any questions from our participants at home? Okay, any more questions from the audience? Okay, so our last workshop is a little shorter, but I would like to take the opportunity to thank everyone for participating, whether they participated week 4, week 3, week 2, week 1. If you were able to join us for all 4, I am very appreciative. I'm sure Columbus Impact is also very fortunate. And keep in mind, as we wrap up this series, the biggest takeaways, I want you to think about how COVID has impacted your life, your spouse's or significant other's life, your family's life, and pay attention to these adjustments you made. Don't always focus on the negative. Think about things that you're doing better now than maybe you didn't do before COVID, because I think there's a lot to be said about our resiliency as a society, and definitely in the Black community. We are a resilient people. So when you reflect on how COVID has impacted your life, don't just think about the negative, think about the positive. Maybe you're spending more time with your family. Maybe you have kind of reevaluated your priorities with your job. Maybe it's brought you and your significant other closer together, or maybe it has amplified some maybe communication issues in different various relationships, but it's giving you an opportunity to address those. The number of referrals that I have gotten over the last year has jumped considerably. So what that tells me is one, people are struggling, but two, people are also feeling more comfortable reaching out for help. And I think that's a wonderful thing. So I would encourage anyone at home, whether you're struggling in some way, whether your kids are struggling, don't be afraid to reach out for help. A lot of insurance companies now are waiving copays and deductibles because they know that mental health issues or struggles are on the rise because of COVID and how it's impacted people financially and their physical health and families. So this is like the absolute best time to reach out outside of your normal circle of family and friends and seek help. And if you don't do anything but go to 1 or 2 counseling sessions, just to kind of vent and just talk about where you are right now, and maybe the 2 sessions are just like, whoa, COVID has been a mess, and this is how it's impacted me. And that's all you need, then wonderful. If you have that ability, do that. Now, if you don't have insurance, I think it's Mental Health America of Franklin County offers free counseling services for people who do not have insurance. There's also a lot of agencies and private practitioners like myself who have sliding fee scales. I know a lot of companies offer EAP. I have a lot of clients who they want to avoid paying a copay, so they use their EAP, their free sessions, to come see me. Do that. And even if you think your kids are doing okay, I think it's all right to allow them to check in with a therapist, whether they're, like, I see kids as young as 7, whether they're 7 or 8 years old, or they're teenagers, or they're in college. Maybe COVID and all of this has impacted them in ways that they're not able to articulate, or they may not feel comfortable sharing it with you. Believe it or not, there's a lot of kids out there who will not tell their parents how they're feeling because they're worried about their parent. They're watching their parent struggle financially. They're watching their parent try to juggle finding tutoring and finding babysitters. And you got these little people out there who are struggling themselves, but they're more concerned about their parent or their parents and what they're going through. So as close as you may be to your child, there are some kids out there who will not open up to you because they're worried about you. So why not take the opportunity, if you can, to get your child signed up for 1 or 2 sessions, see how it goes, and if everything's great, cool. It's like a physical health checkup, or for your car tune-up. If after one visit or 2 visits, they're fine, great. But you may discover that they have things on their mind that they haven't shared with you. So keep that in mind as well. Do we have any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us. I think we're making the survey available, the link for the survey. So whether you attended just today or you attended all 4 or maybe 2 out of the 4, please complete the survey for us. We would love your feedback, and take care and have a wonderful, happy, safe, and healthy 2021.